Okay, I think we'll make a start now rather than delay any further. So for those who don't know me, I'm Adam Hitchings, the Development Manager for Wales at the Architectural Heritage Fund, and I'm also the Wales Trustee of the Heritage Trust Network. This is a joint session with our friends at Catalyst Cymru, and we've got Siobhan Hayward here, who I'm sure many of you know as well. And Siobhan and I have been discussing this for a couple of months now, I'm guessing. So it's a good opportunity just to share what has been happening, and those who are speaking today, who I'll introduce shortly, will be sharing their experiences of being part of the Catalyst Cymru programme, which Siobhan manages. So I'll hand over to Siobhan quickly just to do a bit of an overview of what Catalyst Cymru has been doing this year, and also guessing a quick prelude as to what's going to happen later in the year as well.
Oh, great. Bore da, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. It's really nice to see you all here this morning. Just looking around the screen, I think quite a few people are actually quite familiar with Catalyst Cymru, but for those who aren't, I'm just going to share the screen, and I've just got a few slides just to give you just a bit of an overview of what the Catalyst Cymru Resilient Heritage Project is. And as Adam says, I've got some good news to share about what's coming next. So if you just bear with me, I'll share the screen now. It's great. Can everyone see that? I see some nods there, so that's good. There we go. So Catalyst Cymru, the Resilient Heritage Project, it started in 2019 and runs to 2021. And it's funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And the overall aim of the project is to have this sort of approach that we're going to support the voluntary heritage organisations here in Wales. And we're going to do this, well, the overall aim was to support organisations in increasing their skills, knowledge and confidence in these following areas. So we're looking at areas such as governance, so that could be things like widening board diversity, looking at how to go about recruiting new trustees to boards, and also looking and reviewing like policies and procedures. There's aims to actually work around supporting people in developing their business planning processes. And that's often the case of bringing together various different plans into sort of one overall plan, which is starting off with the like strategic visions and objectives. Other areas include like fundraising and income generation. And I think, as we can see over the last year or so, the importance of maybe income diversification has become even greater. And other areas to sort of support organisations in their sort of organisational development, including looking at marketing and the use of social media, and the whole thing about demonstrating and looking at impact. So that's all about thinking, you know, okay, so we're doing everything, so what difference does this make? And that's increasingly becoming important to share with funders as well as knowing where you're at an organisational level. So the overall outcome of the 2-year project was to actually sort of help support the voluntary heritage organisations to overall become more sustainable in the long-term future. Sustainability, we're talking about financial sustainability, but also looking at other aspects of the organisation and being resilient. And the name of the project was called Catalyst Cymru Resilient Heritage, and that has become even truer, I think, over the last 18 months or so. So actually, so how does it work? How does the project work? There's 3 strands. So the main aim was to support organisations on a one-to-one basis through executive coaching. So we've had 24 organisations throughout Wales who've come on board as this part of the programme, and they're matched with with consultants who are actually very experienced in their areas of expertise, which are those topics I've just sort of shown on the previous slide. We've called it coaching though, because the idea is that we wanted organisations to work with each other rather than someone actually doing the work on behalf of. So that's why it's got this sort of, the overall name of it is the coaching. So that's well underway now, and we've got about 15 organisations have now actually completed that strand. The second strand was a training programme which reflected again those topics. So we've had training in a whole different types of sort of fundraising and income generation, looking at widening board diversity, and looking at sort of measuring impact as well. And that is open to the wider voluntary sector. And in fact, we've got a couple of more courses coming up. So I don't know, probably through Bev, I'll be able to sort of send out some links to those at the end of today. The third strand was peer support network, and it's been really great because many of the organisations who have taken part in the coaching have also given up their time to come along and attend some peer mentoring training that we've put on. And again, the idea of that is to then sort of maybe to pass on those knowledge and skills to the wider sector through different means. And one of them, let's say today, is a sort of an example of a networking event where you're very excited. In a minute, you'll be hearing from 4 of the organisations who have taken part in the coaching, who again sort of sharing their experiences and what they've learned. And that is all about their what they've done with their projects, as well as probably touching a little bit on the coaching side. So those are the 3 elements. And just to say, when we talk about heritage organisations, Catalyst Cymru took on board the National Lottery Heritage Fund's definition. So it's incredibly wide ranging. So buildings and monuments, castles, celebrating and restoring our industrial past, and we've got land and natural heritage projects, and also museums and libraries and archives have been represented. So we've had a wide range, great geographical spread as well, and really pleased that we'll be hearing from 4 of the organisations shortly. Just before I finish, so there's more information about Catalyst Cymru if you wanted to follow us on @Catalyst Cymru. And the good news I wanted to share is that we've been successful in actually getting funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund for a further project, which is going to operationally start in sort of September, October. So there's still going to be the coaching element. So more organisations can come on board and apply for that one-to-one coaching support. We will be doing a training programme, but we're going to be working quite closely with the Wales Co-op Centre with some of their sort of modular courses, which we're very excited about. And the third strand is new, and it's about widening networks. And this is going to be, because WCVA, we have sort of many links with many different networks from diverse voluntary sector, and we're going to sort of do events to bring heritage organisations closer together to get to know different groups that they might not have worked with before. So we're really pleased. We've got going to be working with Disability Wales, Ethnic Youth Support Team, and Pride Cymru as examples. So we're particularly, it's going to be very interesting seeing that strand developed, which is helping everyone widen networks and diversity. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot from me. I'm looking at my time. I think I'm keeping to time. So at this point, I'll hand back to Adam. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Siobhan. And Bev has very handily put up the agenda for the session this morning in the chat function. So I'll just do some quick introductions before handing over to our guest speakers this morning. So first up, we've got Nancy Albert from the Hay Castle Conservation Trust. And then Nancy will be followed then by Louise Austin from the Tywi Gateway. And then we have a Q&A session based on Nancy and Louise's presentation. And then if we want, we can have a comfort break, but if everybody is happy to plough on, then we can do that. And then after that, we then have Esther Roberts from Oriel and Vicki Roskams from Enbarr Foundation as well, talking about their projects. And then that'll be followed by another Q&A session, and then a general discussion about what we want to do next as a theme or subjects we want to cover in future Heritage Trust Network events going forward. So I shall now pass you over to Nancy Albert, and she can tell us about what's been happening at Hay Castle.
Hi everybody, good morning, and I'm really pleased that we get to start this morning's session with talking about the project that I've been involved with so closely for the past several years. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our experience with Catalyst Cymru, and I hope also give you some information along the way that might be useful to you. So I will just pop up a photo here of Hay Castle. Hay Castle is located at the heart of Hay-on-Wye, which is a border town in Powys County. And it people call it Hay Castle, but as you can see, it is largely a mansion. The medieval castle ruin is on the left there. The bulk of it is a Jacobean era manor, which comprises remnants of an Elizabethan manor as well, and Victorian outbuildings and so on. And the project to restore this, I'm going to call it semi-derelict. This is what it looked like when we took it over. Half of the mansion was roofless, but half of it had been lived in. It's always been a private residence, and the project to restore it began in 2011 with the purchase of the site, which was on the market, and the intention to create a place that's open to the public. And we didn't know what that was going to be, but we started thinking about it. I'd say the founding trustees naively thought that the project would take, I mean, just looking at it, £1 or £2 million, and would take 1 or 2 years to complete. So luckily, nobody thought it was going to be too difficult, so they dived in and you know, and made a go of it. So the first thing that we did was you know, get a little bit of funding. Actually, I think it might have been Architectural Heritage Fund who gave us the very first little teeny weeny seed money to bring on board a heritage consultant to help us start to shape the project. So back in the early days, we started costing out what it was going to be, doing all the due diligence with consultations and all that kind of stuff. And we realized, it's going to be more like a £6.5 million project to do what we wanted to do with this scheduled ancient monument and grade 1 listed building. So we applied to the National Lottery Heritage Fund for just under the £5 million threshold. And in early 2014, I think we received the you know, round 1 basically. So we were ecstatic, so that left us having to raise £1.5 million, which a friend of mine called Dan Clayton Jones pointed out would take, if we were to raise £1,000 a day, it would take us 3 years to raise £1.5 million. So that was a little daunting, but we were very, very lucky that we had on our board a trustee who was a professional fundraiser, and we also brought on board a fundraising consultant to help us get you know, the big grants, because obviously if you're raising 1.5 million, those 6-figure grants are really important on your fundraising pyramid. They're the skinny ones at the top. So so we were very lucky that we achieved our goal of 1.5 million match funding by early 2018, say, at which point our costs had already risen beyond that goalpost. So we have always been playing catch up with funding. We started work on this site later in 2018. It looks more like this now. It's believe it or not, it's almost done. But I think it was just last year, a year ago, or maybe a bit more, that our lottery grants officer suggested that we apply to Catalyst Cymru for you know, for help in fundraising, because we were short of where we needed to be. And so we did, and I was really specific about what we wanted. We wanted a fundraising consultant, somebody who did this professionally for clients who would be just like us. And we specifically wanted somebody with expertise about foundations in Wales, because we had been more successful on the England side than on the Wales side. And I think part of that is because we're kind of, you know, off the radar in Wales. You know, it's sort of the curse of being on the border is we're not really, you know, considered really Welsh. We're not very Welsh. So so that's what we wanted. And Catalyst Cymru paired us up with Richard Tynan of the Funding Center in Cardiff. And I didn't know what to expect. I think I did expect that maybe he was going to either come up with, pull out of his sleeve, a major foundation that we or foundations or funding sources that we weren't aware of, or maybe even write an application for us. I really didn't know. But what he did do was sort of give us a kick in the pants, and a shot in the arm as well. So he looked at one of our grant applications, and he was pretty ruthless. And in spite of the fact that we had had success over the years, he felt that it was lacking urgency, and it was too polite, and he didn't think it was terribly effective. So that was helpful. On the other hand, after 8 years of fundraising, we were pretty weary, and we needed an infusion of enthusiasm, which he brought to us. We told him about the project, and he lit up, and he was able to feed that back to us about what was so crucial about the project. So he steered us in two directions, and one was back to Welsh Government, where we had received some funding a little bit here, Visit Wales, leader funding, which was being administered by Powys County, and a couple of other sources. But he steered us right back and said, it's just sort of it's like pushing a kid up on stage or something, and he just said go back to them, and he gave us a talk through a strategy about how to reapproach the government for some funding. And then he was also able to tell us when the time was right to go back to some of the foundations in Wales that we had approached before but weren't successful with, and he sort of had the insight to know that one of them was more likely than the others to respond to an 11th hour, we're almost done, get us over the finish line kind of pitch. So the result of the of working with Rich Tynan was that we raised £300,000, which was enough to get us, back on a level playing field. That said, the costs continue to rise, until we throw our doors open, which is now going to happen later this year. Costs continue to rise, and then once we are operating, we will always need to be fundraising, to support the project. Main sources of revenue are going to be weddings and private events. We also have retail spaces inside and next to the site, which is great. And one of the strengths going forward is that we do have a variety of revenue streams, so we're not dependent on any one thing. We have some events that will have admission. We have some events, where vendors are going to pay to be involved. The private events, the retail lets, the cafe, the shop, and so on. So we're not overly dependent on any one thing.
Got 2 minutes left, Nancy.
Oh, perfect, because actually I'm done. I just wanted to say a big thanks to Catalyst Cymru for being able to provide a mentor to us who was, just like a custom-made fit. It was something that we really, really needed, especially when I think I said at the beginning that we anticipated that the project would be 1 or 2 million over 1 or 2 years, and it's more like 10 million and 10 years. So if we'd known that, we never would have gotten involved in it in the first place. So it's a good thing we didn't know. But yeah, big thanks to Catalyst Cymru, and I have I look forward to being able to pay it back to someone else.
Excellent, thanks Nancy. We'll hand over to Louise and then we'll take questions if anybody has any going forward.
Right, I'll just share my screen. I've got some slides here to prompt me and to actually show some images as well of what we're involved in, and I just need to remember how to do this now. Right, is that working? Great. Okay, so yes, I'm Louise Austin and I'm the manager of the Tywi Gateway Trust, working at the Bishop's Park at Abergwili, which is the grounds of the old Bishop's Palace, the Bishops of St David's. And the first slide was to show you a bit about the number of the different organisations that we have had supporting us with funding since we first started this whole project. And it was the Welsh Historic Gardens Trust that started the process back in 2014, again with initial support from the Architectural Heritage Fund that enabled the whole process to start. But it was we're dealing with a site that was owned, the main part of it owned by the county council, with the old Bishop's Palace used as the county museum, the Carmarthenshire County Museum in the middle of it, and with elements of what were the grounds of the old Bishop's Palace still owned by the Church in Wales. But none of it actually being managed or really appreciated for the significance that it has, both for its history and heritage, its horticulture, and for its wildlife. So we, as I say, with initial support, got some funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund, and finally in 2017 we were awarded 1.24 million by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, as it is now, and with funding from the County Council, Welsh Government, a whole long list of, as you can see from the previous screen. But I started work in 2018 as the manager, closely followed by a head gardener, because one of the major things was actually bringing back over around about 9 hectares of land back into being maintained and managed green open space. So we had funding to enable us to do the capital works between 2018 and 2021, with an operational phase up to 2022 being funded as well, to develop activities and events to enable us to engage with the to engage with the public, to engage with the local community, with schools, and but most important, to develop increasing support and involvement and engagement by that local community, and to ensure that we had a sustainable site that wasn't just going to be done up and left, but it was actually going to be managed and maintained into the future as a community resource. So we have this site with a county museum in the middle of it all, and what we were going to be also creating were new visitor facilities, so creating a cafe, a learning space, and new facilities, so toilets and information. So this was we are working hand in hand with the county council, although they aren't a formal partner in the lottery funded project. but we're working in collaboration with them. And but the whole project is about not just doing the work to restore the site, but actually celebrating the park's history, horticulture and wildlife. So these are some of the things that make the park special. So it's a site that's been used was used as a bishop's palace from the 16th century, but it had ecclesiastical college there beforehand, so we knew that there had been gardens there for over 800 years. We have a wonderful walled garden that when the bishops moved out in the 1970s, it had gone to rack and ruin, and so we were bringing that back into production of fruit and veg, and using it as a way of engaging people and children and families with actually the production of food and growing. We also have a meadow. It's a floodplain meadow that was part of the parkland as part of the grounds of the Bishop's Palace, and within that we have an oxbow lake, which is also a triple SI, and so it's got huge natural and wildlife interest, and so we're wanting to ensure that we can improve the management and increase the biodiversity of the floodplain, and also ensure that we're improving the condition of the triple SI as well. It's also the floodplain meadow is the Tywi Valley, and so it's a fantastic point for actually starting to explore the whole of the Tywi Valley, and it's about we have a designed landscape which is all about bringing the views of the broader valley into the designed gardens. And so what we want to do is encourage people to go from the museum and link it with the grounds, and then to take people on to start them off on an exploration and adventure throughout the Tywi Valley. So this is a plan just giving you an idea of the area. So we have the meadow, we have the formal gardens, which were the pleasure gardens, and we have the walled garden over here. But in the middle of it all sits the county museum, which is in the old Bishop's Palace, and you know, the challenge of creating more car parking space within a registered historic parking garden, which is a whole nother issue. But so yeah, lots of challenges. But we've had various headaches, and of course, having started our capital works. Although we started in 2018, we had the whole design process that continued through to the beginning of 2020, and we were due to start all of our major capital programs in the first half of 2020, and that COVID came and made everything so much more difficult. So we actually had to close the park for 3 months to the public. From March 2020 through to the beginning of July. And doing that, we also had to suspend our volunteering. So our head gardener, who had been working with groups of volunteers on a regular basis to actually ensure that we were making progress with improving the condition of the parkland, came to a sudden stop. So he was on his own for over 3 months. And even when we could bring back our volunteers, we were wanted to make sure that we were in line with all of the whole sort of restrictions, and making sure that we were COVID secure in the work that we were doing with volunteers. And so we're very limited in the numbers that we were able to bring back.
We've got 2 minutes left, Louise.
Oh, crikey, already. That's right, okay, well, I better crack on then. So we had all the capital works are delayed, mainly as a result of the consent process. just the organisations involved. So we resulted in an 8-month delay in our main capital works, and so that's increased our costs, and also it has delayed when we're going to start our income generation. So this is some of the work that we're doing on the outbuildings, so the contractors are working at the moment. However, we had highlights amongst all that, which was the fact we were able to reopen to the public, we were able to get our volunteers back, but the whole closing and opening actually turned out to be really positive, because it enabled us to change the regime. We'd had a lot of problems with dogs, we'd had a lot of problems with the whole site. Basically, our major users were dog walkers, and they felt it was their own, and therefore dogs were off leads. Dog mess wasn't being picked up. By closing and then changing the regime when we opened, we were able to change the rules basically, and people came with us because a lot more people came to use the park during lockdown, and so that fitted together incredibly well. But also, what was really, really exciting, we were able, we fundraised with various bodies and organisations, and had got more funding to enable employment of a community engagement and learning officer. And in fact, we employed a job share, which was absolutely fantastic, and has really increased our capacity to actually engage with the community to get the support that we need, both now and developing into the long term. Which is what fits with what we were doing with Catalyst Cymru, because we went to Catalyst Cymru and were delighted when they agreed to support us and give us a coach and mentor. But we had a whole long list of all these different things that we thought we could have usefully had support for. But it was we were matched with Julie Johnson, who her I think specialism was fundraising, and she helped us with all sorts of things, but she focused on creating a fundraising strategy and plan, looking at donations rather than the major organisations and bodies that we had been successfully getting funding from. We were looking at a long-term income that was going to help us to actually keep the management and maintenance of the park in the long term. And so it's the creation of that which has actually helped us to actually create a plan that our community engagement and learning officers are now working with, that is already bringing regular donations to us, which starting at a low level, but we can already see that increasing. So just one of the things that we were doing, I was saying was going well, was we had created new garden areas. So these are all the plans going from the 19th century map to what we were trying to create as inspired by the 19th century designs. And so at the end of March, with the end of the lockdown, we were able to actually bring it and have our first public activities, and we brought in groups of children to help with planting the gardens, which was so exciting and so yes, just so great after not being able to properly engage in person for so long. So in terms of our horizons, yeah, completing our capital works now, hopefully in autumn, although as ever there are more delays, more costs and all the rest of it, but I'm really looking forward to actually having the cafe on site. Then we go into our operational phase, and so we're planning to have our major launch official opening on the 1st of March, St David's Day, to linking with the Bishops of St David's, who are the occupants here. But we need to continue to increase our volunteer numbers and our community support, and optimising income and generation and fundraising. And so what we've been able to create with the support from Julie and Catalyst Cymru is really the basis of how we're working to develop. Just at the moment, we're just working with general low-level donations, but we're going to go on to medium-level donations from local companies and businesses, and we have a plan of how to achieve that. And then when we've done all that, we go on to the next project, which is the walled garden. And so we're already talking to the Architectural Heritage Fund about how we get initial funding for to develop detailed costings and detailed designs so that we can get our list of building consent and then be in a position to apply for major funding awards from various organisations and bodies. So yes, there's a lot there. Sorry, I've probably run over by miles now. So that's me. Any questions?
That's great. Thanks, Louise. That's really good to see just what's been happening both through yourself and Nancy up in Hay as well. I'm just going to open the forum basically to see whether anybody else wants to ask questions of either Louise or Nancy as a start of a 10. Martin, yep.
Hi, I'm Martin Price. I'm actually one of the mentors. I've been mentoring Ceredigion Museum and the Anglesey Column Trust. But I'm also involved in a new project looking at taking over the Norwegian church in Cardiff Bay back from the council into community use. What I was interested in was your catering, the cafe and so on that you in both of Hay and in Abergwili. Did you have a catering consultant to work with you on the cafe, or were you doing it yourselves? And if you have one, could you recommend one? Because one of the things with the Norwegian church is one of the major offerings is going to be a destination cafe in the middle of Cardiff Bay.
Well, in the case of Hay Castle, we didn't have an outside catering consultant. We happened to have on our board a cafe operator, which is what I would suggest is just get a cafe operator in to help you at least frame what the offering might be. We always fully intended to operate the cafe ourselves because you'll make more money that way than subcontracting it out to an outside cafe operator. But we in the end did decide to go the latter route because we wanted to reduce our risks from the outset. And we also felt that with all the different aspects of this project, everything, the interpretation, opening to the public, the opening exhibitions, that we didn't have the resources, the people, the manpower, the attention to hire and launch the cafe ourselves. So it might be a temporary thing, and eventually we may take it back in-house. That's what we did.
We've got a sort of similar story. We developed the project proposal without using a catering consultant, and I think it would have been better if we had had more specialist knowledge and experience at that stage. We intended to run it ourselves, and we were going to use volunteers to have employ a cafe manager, and that may still be what we do in the long term. But at the moment, we've been approached by a local business person who runs cafes and is a very successful and known quantity, and we're currently in discussions with them about them actually running it, mainly because one of our real issues is that we were a new organisation set up in 2016, so we have no sort of money behind us. We have no we can't afford to make a loss in the first year or two, however long it takes to actually get up to the point where we're bringing in a reasonable income from the cafe. And so by working with someone else running it, that reduces the risk, as Nancy said.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think
Martin, I could offer to share our cafe business plan with you if you want.
That would be great if you could do that. That'd be great.
Yeah,
I'll put my email address in the chat. That'd be great. Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Just with a mind on the clock, I think we should, if everyone's happy, we'll plough on rather than having a 10-minute comfort break if everybody is in agreement. I think that's the really salient points by both Nancy and Louise, that the temptation is often that we will run a cafe. We can run a cafe, we can make teas and coffees and sandwiches. It's more of a bind around your neck to do that and to actually make a profit. I think there's great benefits by bringing that specialism in to do that. And I think there's been lots of examples right across Wales, but actually across the UK, where trusts have come a cropper by trying to do too much in-house without bringing in those people with the expertise of how to do these catering and public-facing facilities and services properly. I think we would certainly advocate that you do speak to the people who know it and make a living from it as well, basically. So hopefully there'll be lots of operators within Cardiff you can contact as well, Martin, as to who you could potentially work in partnership with to take on that that opportunity as well.
Yeah, we've actually got we've got a catering company, a cafe existing people. We're asking for advice. I was looking for more. Yeah, that's one view. I was looking for a sort of wider consultant's view, if you like. But
Esther?
So just coming on that, I don't remember his name, but I could try and find out. I attended an Association of Cultural Enterprise session in the sort of middle of lockdown, and he was a catering consultant, and actually just the pointers and things that he kind of threw out there to consider, because we have again a franchise, having thought we'd do it ourselves, and actually just he was really valuable. So I'll try and dig his name out. And,
if you could, that'd be very helpful.
It was it was really helpful.
We went to the local university that did the catering, and they sent us their professor, who actually has outlined and done all the plans for us.
Oh, good.
Because that way, guess what? It's not cost us anything.
I think you're a whiz in many saving opportunities, and by really pushing the network you have, Vicki, I think is loads to be said about making it as cost neutral as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're more than happy to help, and they're the professionals. They're training the next generation of these guys. And at the end of the day, if they don't know the answer, we're stumped.
Excellent. Just with a mind on the clock, if I now pass over to we've gone on my screen. Yes, there you go. So Esther is at Oriel, and she'll be talking about what's been happening up in Anglesey, and in particular Llangefni, over the last 12 months.
Hi. Louise, I used to work on the Bishop's Palace project with the Oriel in Bangor. So it was kind of memories came flooding back when you were showing the pictures of the Bishop's Palace. So I'm afraid I haven't got any slides. I don't have a sort of sparkling project to dazzle you with. I guess our sort of, I'll dive straight in. We are I'm sort of got a hat. So I'm the senior manager of Oriel Morn, which is part of a local authority art gallery and museum. And we recently set up a Oriel Mont Development Trust. Which sits separately, which is a registered charity sitting separately to the Anglesey Trust, but I or a member, when I disappear, provides sort of administrative support for the trust. And there's a memorandum of understanding between the council and the development trust. We're basically really newly formed, and actually we had the first round of Catalyst fundings maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, where we were lucky to have Richard Tynan to help us develop, the sort of the governance and the policies and the sort of charitable status for gaining the charitable trust. I think the biggest headache was with banks, which seemed to take forever. So I think it took about 2 years from sort of first making an application to actually getting being established as a development trust in January 2020. The trust launched a membership scheme beginning of March 2020, and obviously COVID happened. From the current Catalyst programme, we were really lucky to work with Richard again, which was fantastic because we didn't have to kind of repeat everything, and so he knew where the trust was at, and we had identified that we needed support with improving our sort of fundraising, improving our sort of marketing communications, understanding our audiences, and measuring and demonstrating impact. So those are the three things we wanted. And for the Catalyst programme, we concentrated on the fundraising strategy element. So Richard has basically been helping. We've nearly sort of signed it off. I think that's in the next board meeting at the end of June. So he's been helping with that. I'll go into the main things. So I'll sort of go a bit, because that's a bit of my in a way that has been a highlight, because it's been something that's actually happened. So much of our things have been on hold in this last 15 months. So specifically, what was really helpful with Richard was his, as Nancy stated, his sort of understanding of funders in Wales, his understanding of that making the case. So we have 9 trustees from a mixture of backgrounds, but nobody's sort of professional fundraisers. But so it was really helpful to have his insight actually into sort of needing the strategy, into getting really specific case supports, making sure everybody was sort of on board with that and comfortable making those cases. So when we are able to have networking events and such things, everybody would feel comfortable, and also have specific income targets, and specifically around developing a sort of unrestricted fund. So a lot of the fundraising strategy has been sort of thrashing out what some of the income targets might be. I guess at the beginning of the Catalyst project, the trust had identified that they would develop a sort of membership type of scheme and concentrate on individuals initially, with a view to developing a sort of maybe more corporate strand and sponsorship down the line. So in the way, the fundraising strategy has sort of given us a sort of an action plan. It's also sort of given us the, he's made us do an action plan with prospect research, which is something I don't think any of us had really known about. Because I maybe have experience of Welsh Government funders or National Lottery funders, but it's I kind of felt I couldn't really support them. So in the sort of more private and corporate elements, and that's been really valuable, working with the Catalyst. Just to sort of talk a bit more generally about some of the things that we've been doing. So Oriel is established in 1991. And strangely, it came about the Charles Tunnicliffe collection existed. The local authority bought that before they actually had a building to put it in. So that's how the Oriel actually started, with this Charles Tunnicliffe collection. And then since then, they've obviously built the gallery, and it's got quite a large collection of Welsh art, in particular Cyffin Williams, and also more recently sort of developing a sort of museum as well. So it's a sort of fairly big site, lots of gallery spaces. In terms of the model, the Charitable Trust of Isle of Anglesey Charitable Trust, which is now just rebranded, I think, to a Gymdeithas, we receive a sort of annual grant from them, which is maybe like a third of our budget, and then there's a small grant from the local authority, and the rest is income generated from our shop and exhibition sales, cafe rent, and room hires. So of course, we were doing fairly well commercially, considering it's, you know, reaching nearly half the income. There are challenges with that, where the local authority kind of slap on an extra 5% just because it's what they do, like regardless of how you perform. But that was going fairly well, and obviously then COVID happened, which just decimated all our regular funding. So the fact that we'd started the Catalyst programme to think about that meant that while we haven't kind of successfully started asking people for money, we've kind of, you know, the trust have a sort of action plan and a strategy in place to be able to be able to do that, I guess. Some of the, you know, during COVID, one of the first things was, you know, trying to get staff able to work from home, work remotely, and one of the best things actually has probably been able to, the fact that IT teams have embraced Teams and Zooms, and, you know, we've been able to access training such as the Catalyst Steps to Sustainability, which have also been a part of, and the Arts and Business, and more recently that Let's Get Real, which is a Culture 24 programme. And we've been able to have grants for the other elements I talked about with the measuring and impact, which we've had some training through the Catalyst and also through the Steps to Sustainability programme. So sort of that learning, which we, you know, has been really valuable in, yeah, just developing really, and looking for that sustainability, and maybe looking at different models as well of generating income now in a sort of, I won't say post-COVID world, in a COVID world. Some of the challenges have been around the lack of digital we had. So we, you know, I looked on and very jealously with people who are kind of instantly be able to pivot to be able to do exhibitions and events online. As a local authority, we're still not actually allowed to use Zoom, you know, host anything on Zoom, and there's kind of internal controls which have made things quite difficult, perhaps, or takes much longer than you think, for example. So I think that's the challenge that is ongoing, I'd be safe to say. And then the sort of other main obvious one is around being closed, supporting our artists and our community while being closed and maybe not being able to respond digitally. We did do some things like survey, you know, again, online surveys about how people felt about returning, what sort of things they would like to see digitally. So it gave us a bit of understanding of where we needed to invest, because it's also all new to all our staff as well, obviously, in developing digital content. And also then that, you know, engaging with audiences when you've been closed for a very long time. At the moment, we have actually we were able to open in August, September, and a little bit before Christmas. Some of our galleries were able to open, and obviously now since the June. But that's just with you know, limited numbers in the building, whereas we haven't as yet been able to do any events. We are about to start doing some outdoor small scale events like guided walks linking to Catherine Williams and some of the art collections. But
Esther, you've got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, okay, right. I just wanted to thought about, so I was looking at our, what's next really is trying to embrace the challenge of digital. We found that our staff maybe don't have the skills, including myself. I thought I was quite digital savvy, and you know, really not. So developing skills, digital literacy within the team has been important, and having Welsh Government grants to help support digital commissioning, but also training for us to be able to do more with, ourselves as part of the team. But that is thought through, and that we also have something in place to evaluate how successful that is. Which has been really valuable. We did have just before opening as well, we had a William Roos exhibition, which is a sort of major blockbuster art collections from National Museum, Wales and National Library, funding from the Art Fund. And of course we only had a month of opening. So, but what it did allow us was to be able to trial some things that we wouldn't normally, like, you know, having a 360 virtual exhibition, having an online catalogue, creating some films with a curator. So that has given us some sort of some sort of benchmark or, you know, beginning, I guess, which has given us some confidence. So it's that ongoing challenge of, you know, restarting and re-engaging with our communities. We have a community collections coordinator regarding COVID, which will be an important role in collecting the impact COVID has had here on Anglesey. So there are sort of various projects and strands, but what the Catalyst has given us is that sort of the fundraising strategy and the trustees' confidence in what the plan is regarding trust and foundations, but also individual giving and sponsorship, which is hopefully going to stand us in good stead, as you know, our income models have totally changed and we don't know what's around the corner either. So that's a sort of snapshot. So thank you.
That's good. Thanks, Esther. As my video goes off, that's really good. I know that Hay Castle trialed some virtual tours last year. Nancy, do you want to mention that briefly and how successful you found that went?
Oh yeah, we've done a couple of things, but I think the one you're talking about is we videoed an actual, you know, come with me tour of the site that ran a couple of minutes, and then we sent out an invitation on Zoom for people to join this hard hat tour, basically, and we had lots of people show up for that. It was really fun. The only downside to it is that showing video via Zoom can be a little, you know, kind of sketchy. So it wasn't perfect. And I don't know if any of the other platforms are better for that, but it's a nice way to stay in touch with people and show them what you're doing. And it's cheap. We just did it on an iPhone.
Exactly. It's amazing what you can do with what's in your pocket these days, and the quality of the video, as long as the platform can support it, is can be great. And I know that certainly with Apple promo videos, that you got lots of feature films now being recorded on iPhones, basically. So it's amazing what you can do with for a very inexpensive type of way to engage with that audience. And I know that it's in which a lot of HCM members are doing right across the UK, and it's I think it's an untapped resource at the moment, because it's a great way, as you say, to keep your supporters in contact as well, basically. Vicki, I'll pass over to you now. So last but by no means least, you can tell us about what you've been doing up in Shotton. Vicki, you're on mute at the moment.
Right. Is it come up okay?
Yep, that's perfect, yeah.
Right. I'm going to talk to you about the project that we're doing. It's all about when a community comes together. I've heard a lot about what everyone else is doing, and everyone talks about community, but we've tried to tackle it from a bit different approach, where if a community wants to regenerate something, then they need to do it from the grassroots level. So John Summers Building was placed on the national top 10 list of endangered buildings in 2018. And at that point, the council had just let it fall apart. And it was the old British Steelworks head office. And it's absolutely gorgeous inside still, as you'll see from some of the pictures. It's got a gorgeous panelled boardroom. It's got a staircase inside built by the original people that built the Titanic. Adam has been inside with it. And I went to Adam at the Architectural Heritage Fund and said, we've got an idea to save this building. And he said, what idea is this? I said, that the community is going to do it. And he went, right, okay, do you think it's feasible? I went, I do. So funds do the feasibility. The BBC then picked it up and went, this organisation are going to get a community to rebuild a building. How bizarre is this? So it was then became a building was rebuilding. So we're actually rebuilding the building as we rebuild the community, because the community's been a bit fractured since 15,000 people were made redundant back in 1980, all in one shot. It was 10,000 one day and 5,000 over the rest of the time. That's why when you hear about these big redundancies that are happening now, they're nothing compared to what the steelworks did. You heard about the mines, you heard about other things. This was the biggest in European history. And it basically decimated the area. This building was left and, you know, it's fallen into rack and ruin. This was the part of innovation that's probably set most of the manufacturing going for the whole of the UK. What we did with Adam's money was we held engagement events. We then did this drawing from all the ideas where you guys are saying you're having cafes, you're having everything. I said, right, you guys want to save it? What do you want? Because if a community gets behind something, they will then respond and they will do something with it. So we asked them what they wanted to do with the building. We got kids involved, we got schools involved. They all built, you know, things out of cardboard boxes. They built clock towers. They did everything. They wanted it as wedding space. They wanted it as observatories. They wanted it as everything. I went back with some of the ideas to Adam. We thought they were a bit wacky, but, you know, Cadu came on board and basically we're moving it along. Potchin, who gifted us the building, went into administration in 2019. The administrators took the building back off us. We were just making space. In that 3-month period while we were trying to raise the funds to buy it back, unfortunately, the administrators didn't look after it. It was set on fire. It was basically had floods right next to it. Building work started on floodplains. It was flooded. It was set on fire. And why? That's why I was saying earlier, what we had as a figure of 5.2 million suddenly skyrocketed because the damage was horrible. March 2020, we got the building. Then what happened? Yay, COVID. But we weren't going to be deterred. So the people behind the project are myself. I've got a stakeholder group. Loads of people have got behind it. Tata themselves have got behind it. This is what helped us with the Catalyst project. I got a really good person where you guys have said they've helped you with fundraising or they've helped you with governance. What they did for me was they said to me, you've got all the tools, but you're not putting them in the right place. So I think what my Catalyst person mentor helped me do was focus me, because like I said, we wanted this building to survive. We also had the 4 other buildings. I was like a Tasmanian devil whirling around the site, wondering what to do next. This is what they helped me do. They said, right, we need to put 3 things in place: the place, the partnership, and the people. So the funds are being cut. We've got to do all this in place. Where do we move it forward? So they got me to focus. They got me to start putting plans in place. The one thing I did do, which I've heard everyone say, oh, we went to the lottery for funding, we went to this for funding. I did exactly what I did with the plans. I went to all the local businesses and went, you've creamed off this area for years. I want your money. And they went, what? I went, come on, I want your money. And I've got £2 million so far from the local companies in gifts, products and services. Because you know what? They've used enough of this area for years and they need to start giving back to it, because this community at the moment is fractured and there's loads of massive organisations in this area like Airbus, Toyota, everyone. It's great that they can go and give £5,000 to a little charity and think that they're clicking their CSR, but if they're going to put it in their mission statement, they need to back it up with something. And I will call them out in the paper and say, oh, well, Tata are doing this for me, but what about all these other organisations? And basically what happened was they all started coming to the table, and we've got quite a lot of funds behind us now, and I can now go to the Heritage Lottery and say, right, I've got this in match, what are you going to do? I can go to the Welsh Government, and We've come a long way in 2 years. And I think that's, a lot of people say we're going quite fast, but I've gone to universities, I've gone to colleges, and I've gone, what can you give us graduate-wise to help us support this and build it? Because I want to build the future workforces as well. What I'm trying to do is splice heritage skills with technological skills. Where everyone's gone on about digital skills, I've used drone technology. I've gone through there, I've scanned the building, I've gone through and scanned the inside of the building, and we've done a 3D plan like Nancy was going on about. Because basically, if people can see what's happening inside, and most of the guys that come and volunteer do the inside of the building, they take photos as they're doing it. These are, as I call them, my guardians, because they're guardians of the clock tower. They're not volunteers. I value them more than that, because a volunteer, they give up more than their time, and they're learning skills all the way through. They can come in all weathers, rain, sunshine, and they all like to go and get their photo taken in front of the clock face. We started a Save John campaign because it was the John Summers clock tower. He still stands, he's structurally sound. We had a lot of problems. This is what I took to my Catalyst person. You know, wrap it, not wrap it. They helped me come up with my own ideas. That's why they were a coach and not a person. I did have governance and trust, but you know, that they were things that I could have done. She was helping me focus so I could get the project back on an even keel. Reports, the last owner stating 25 million to renovate. At the last report we had, Buttress stepped up as well, and I can't thank Stephen Anderson at Buttress enough. He stepped up and he's helping support us. And I think we've come in at 11.2 million now for the whole project. Another brick in the wall. We've took away all the false ceilings, and we found lovely covings and everything underneath. And as you see, as we clear a room, this is all done by volunteers. It's not done by any building companies. And we're through 2 floors now. We found a rainbow wall underneath that's the old colour coat. And a view from above, because I like flying the drone. That's no other reason. And I teach the others. But you can see the 5 buildings here. We've got a big garage that we were originally going to do the garage in the second building, but thanks to the Catalyst funding, we refocused back onto the main building. Because if we don't save that, we haven't got a project. This is the work that's been done this past 6 months. The clearance, the scaffolding on the clock tower. And we've done that with £200,000. We've scaffolded the building, we've cleared the gardens, and we've cleared out other buildings. That was down for £1 million. That's what happens when you pull a community together and ask companies for help. These are the people. They come along, they learn new skills, they get trained. You ask local organisations, local colleges to come and do the training for you. They're more than happy to come and volunteer. We get people to hang their banners on the scaffolding. You can advertise on my building as long as you give me support and give me products. It's become the biggest billboard in the world. I don't mind. The building doesn't mind. It's up for 2 years. And these are the aspirations which have been helped to be built by the Catalyst person. It's a heritage building, but why does it have to be? Because like I keep saying, save the clock tower. We want it to be an innovation and skills centre. We want it to boost entrepreneurship. Yes, we're going to have a cafe in there. We're going to have a museum in there, but we're also going to offer hot desking. Where we saw COVID as an issue at the beginning, our Catalyst person helped us see on the other side and said, what about hot desking? You've got so much space. In this building alone, you've got 45,000 square foot. You can put hot desking and offices in there. So it's on a cycle path right next to the biggest industrial estate in Wales. So let's put some hot desking. Let's rent out the boardroom. Let's see the opportunities in this building rather than do the others. And we'll get back to the others further down the line. So what it helped me do was get this building up and running and then move on to the next one. All we've done is stripped him back to his basic building, and then we'll rebuild him back up again. All these roles are going to be built within, and the skills are going to be built on this site, and we're going to put a Heritage Skills Centre in there. This is something that North Wales has not got, a proper Heritage Skills Centre. Not only are they going to learn heritage skills, but they're going to do it on the building. When in the world has someone got to learn heritage skills and do it on a live building as a project, and then learn it in the garden? If they don't like to do the construction, they can go and do stone masonry and blacksmithery over in the gardens instead. So it becomes a whole project. From this, it can then be rolled out across other heritage projects to support them. So that's what this is all about. It's all about supporting the heritage industry as a whole, because a lot of people are saying we can't get the funds, we can't get this. Well, let's build a training centre for you. Let's send a place where you can send your people, get them trained, and then roll them out to your organisation. So it's not going to cost you hundreds of pounds to hire that person to do it for you. Let's get some trainees in with that one trained person. And that was what it was like in its heyday. It was absolutely gorgeous. Look at all the old cars. Isn't it wonderful? And these are all the people that I have to thank, because these are the people that believed in me and the community's dream. And that's what it is. You know, Cadwyn Clwyd have helped pay for my surveys. Adam believed in it and paid for my feasibility. And the community funders helped do the support on the gardens. And the WCVA gave me a third sector resilience fund last year to help me with staff, to support me with this vision, and through the Catalyst programme. And last of all, these are the two things that I say to anyone and everyone that comes on the site, because I know this is a scary dream, but so if we don't chase it, it's going to fall down and we'll lose it forever. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
That's good. Thanks, Vicki. Can you there you go, stop sharing the screen. Brilliant. And then any questions from the floor? Splendid. Some of the themes we've been picking up in the morning session are certainly transferable across the board as well, but certainly things look like the need for a fundraising strategy and an action plan, multiple income streams to make sure that not if one part of the business falls down, then that could be softened by others. Certainly cost increases we are hearing are becoming more of an issue at the moment. Not just because of the sewers crisis and the canal, which is blocked for a few weeks and is now having a knock-on effect with people getting garden furniture, but we get from the from projects right across the UK, difficulties in actually getting materials on site, and this is causing huge delays in the schemes and the plans which people have been putting in place for a number of years, and it's really biting now. I think part of that is due to Brexit, part of it is down to COVID as well, but we are seeing a real shortage of those materials, which are really fundamental as well. So not even high-end marble from Italy, for example. Its basic building materials are really hard to come by. And it's something which numerous HDM members have mentioned in the past, the difficulty of actually setting up a bank account, which sounds like the easiest thing in the world. People have had absolute nightmare, and not just in the last 12 months or 15 months, but before COVID was even a thing as well. I don't understand why any bank, but certainly one which has been mentioned to me several times, the charity bank, these just seem to be totally over bureaucratic and the antithesis of being helpful, for basically trying to help people and get money into those accounts as well. I don't understand why they are so difficult to get on board. And even at HTN, trying to get new signatories onto our board who actually can sign off on different expenditure just seems so archaic. They've had to go into different branches across the UK to actually get onto the system as well, where surely in this digital age that can be done much quicker. And yes, there's due diligence, but there's different ways to do that as well. So none of these things are surprising, unfortunately, but they are really coming together and causing a bit of a storm as well. And I think generally COVID has undoubtedly presented some real challenges, from capital works to operational, and trying to manage expectations and volunteers and visitors. But also it has provided some opportunities as well. And I think it has expedited the rate of change as well. So I think there will be a continued shift towards a digital offer, but likewise to deliver that, as Esther mentioned, you need to have those skills developed and building the skills of volunteers and board members and staff to actually deliver those skills as well, because then these things will quickly fall down as well. I think, as Vicki mentioned as well, about creating co-working spaces, we see that becoming a really popular demand, as we see people and businesses maybe retreating from city centres and people wanting to work closer to home. There's a real opportunity here now for towns right across Wales to actually benefit from that as well. I know that a lot of the things Vicki was mentioning about the community-led and the volunteer-led approach to bringing the building back into use. I know that's certainly striking a chord with Karen and the project in Swansea, which she's got in the offing, as well as what is currently on site as well. So I'm not sure if anybody has any questions to ask, or looking forward, are there any particular themes which you want to focus on at future HCN events, where we can bring in guest speakers, the likes of Richard Tynan, who's mentioned a couple of times about fundraising. I know that Catherine, I know that you've got a really good and comprehensive fundraising strategy, and you've been really successful at both corporate, public sector and private and trusts and foundations as well. So again, there's lots of things I'm sure you'll be able to share, but are there any other aspects, such as wanting to bring in maybe consultants to share their expertise and advice with the group as well? Yes, John.
Question on structures. We are set up as a charitable company, limited by guarantee. Many of our activities possibly should be done through a trading arm, and we've never found the time to get that set up, or the capacity really to run a separate company. It's quite hard work just running one. I wonder if anybody has had experience of doing this and how helpful they found it.
Yeah, Catherine, yep.
Oh, hiya, John. I have had some experience of this, and it is a major headache. My advice would be to look to see whether what you're actually doing, the trading that you're proposing, is actually with your charitable objects. And if that's the case, that may be a way to go. But if you are going to have separate entities, you really do need to have clarity about what belongs in terms of income and expenditure to each entity. It can be really confusing, and it ups the admin. So I would speak to a specialist accountancy firm, such as Assets, who deal with a lot of third sector organisations. It's a great way to mitigate risk, though, I would say that, but just go into it with your eyes open, and perhaps Catalyst is an organisation, can provide some consultancy around it, but it certainly does increase the complexity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, there's that trade-off between one, by setting up a subsidiary trading arm will help to protect the asset and protect the trust as well from any liabilities ongoing. But yeah, this is one of the areas where you would benefit from bringing in that expertise to look at not just the governance structure, but also the legalities of where the responsibilities lie as well, basically. So you could have the same members of the board on the subsidiary trading arm as well. But again, it's all about understanding the risks and the liabilities that entails. I'm sure there'll be other members of HCN across the UK who've done this and done it successfully. I think, Bev, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's in which Heritage Lincolnshire have done to great benefit, because they are now focusing on earned income by providing some consultancy in Lincolnshire and the east of England as well. So there's ways to do it, but like I say, you need to get the structure right first and make sure that actually you are doing what you can do and should be doing as a charitable trust, but actually by earning those services which any charity needs to do, you're not stepping over the boundary into trading, basically. So yeah, I think getting that deep dive from a consultant and maybe some legal advice would be the first protocol. Any other questions or burning issues anybody wants to raise now? And likewise, if you've got any suggestions going forward, by all means email myself or Bev at the trust, and we're very happy to take them on and formulate a session to discuss those in more detail.
I was just wanting to say, Vicki, that I am so impressed by what you're all achieving, and that's all, doing that through community grassroots, just great. So I just wanted to take the opportunity.
Thanks, Louise. I was looking at what you're doing, and it's so in comparison. It's so in comparison, and Adam will tell you that when I took it on, I thought it was just a building. And then when I went to the building, and then there was these 4 other buildings, and then there was this big, I mean, it's 13.5 acres in the background. That's what I didn't say. When I showed you the overview picture, it's 13.5 acres. And when we went in the back, it was a jungle. It'd been left for 20 years. And then we found sunken garden in it, a swimming pool, a walled garden, and we found some really rare trees that the Welsh Heritage Garden Trusts now took to the Wales Seed Bank, because they're rare plum trees from Wales that date back to the early 1900s. But it's only when we've cleared the invasive stuff that these small things are there. But that's what's great. But we've got loads of wildlife that's come back now. We've got an otter, we've got some blue jays, I've got a sparrowhawk, I've got some osprey, which have never been seen in the area in 40, 50 years. And I've got some great crested newts.
Wow.
So it's now protected. I know. Well, it's right next to the river. So I've got everything coming back there because we've cleared it. And that's what people don't realise. They think that animals all come. It's not. It's when you clear something, animals come back because it's safe for them. So yeah,
we had to cut basically all of our ash trees, and although most people understood that we did get some concerns over cutting trees, but we were also cutting to open up the views again and to let light in and to make the whole place feel open again. And with that, we've just got the most amazing ground flora coming back again. So it's absolutely
you have to cut down to let it grow.
It's all about,
and it helps with the flooding as well. I know, but we've got a section of ash that's not affected. So
right.
I know, so they were taking cuts off it, but it's all because it's been hidden and it's in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields that are now going to be built on. So I think they were taking it before they get affected. So it's a wonderful place. It's going to carry on being this oasis because now we've got it. We're not letting it go, no matter how much we've been trying to. Adam knows I'm a little bugger. I won't get it. I won't let anybody. I'm like a little Boadicea for the community.
I think what you've been mentioning as well about the re-greening as well, which happens obviously naturally. That is which obviously all projects are going to have to look at going forward, obviously in this climate crisis as well. And yes, it's easier when you've got land joining the buildings, but also there's opportunities for the buildings themselves, which haven't got parks and gardens around them, to actually tap into that, and looking at things like recycling grey water, the use of planting as well could be something to bear in mind, just to again reduce the impact of restoring the buildings. But I think there's growing recognition now as well that by saving these buildings, you're already using that already expended carbon from 100 or 200 years ago, basically. There's that part of the equation to think of as well. But that's not to say that there's no challenges in bringing these buildings back and trying to make them even more environmentally sound and energy efficient as well. And again, I think that, I might be wrong, but I think that's going to be a theme of the this year's agenda and conference in November. But again, it's something which we can talk about and look at really good examples happening right across Wales, and just in the two projects in Shotton and Carmarthen, there's loads of ideas as to what's happening there. And again, we're getting some urban examples in places where it just shows what can be achieved right across the UK as well.
Yeah, we'd certainly like to hear more about that. We're meeting with Renew Wales tonight as our first sort of organisational meeting, but I've had a couple of meetings already just to look at what we can do with the building. But I think they're going to be much less sort of heritage savvy, so I think what they're going to bring to us is going to be helpful, but we might need to adapt it again, and you know, maybe they're going to learn something about heritage too, whoever we get supporting us from Renew Wales. But certainly we'd definitely be interested in, you know, maybe contributing to the conversation, but certainly receiving more information. I'm going to look more into the Heritage Trust Network as well for that, for the sort of environmental side. Links in nicely with the Future Generations Act, obviously, for us. So yeah, exactly.
And that's obviously something to keep reminding us that we do have this world leading legislation in Wales as well, where the environment is put very much at the heart of any regeneration plans as well. Basically, it's not all about the economy, basically. So yeah, it's something which my colleagues over the border need to be reminded about quite often, basically. But it's a really good opportunity here for us to show what we can do differently as well, basically. Just mindful of the time, and my belly's going to start rumbling in the next few minutes as well. But if there's no other questions, I want to thank all our speakers today. So Louise, Nancy, Vicki, and Esther, and thanks for everybody else for attending as well, and for your input. Has been really good, and we'll start to advertise some next dates, or we'll canvass some next dates for another network natter going forward, and maybe use the climate crisis as a potential theme to explore, and maybe bringing in somebody who's been through it, and maybe a consultant who can bring those two often contradicting elements. We're looking at how can historic buildings be a much more conservation led approach from the environmental point of view as well. So that'll be good to see how we can bring that together. And Bevan just put some stuff in the chat about future events which are happening across the UK as well. So obviously, as we're still going to be doing predominantly virtual events for the next few months at least, then there's opportunities to jump on what's happening in England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland as well. So lovely to see you all. Apologies for my camera playing up. I am still here, but thanks everyone for joining, and be in touch soon about future events. But thanks for sharing today.
Thank you very much.